Hello everyone, my name is Wayne Jackson, and today we're going to take a look at how to do power finds in FileMaker. This video is based on a blog written by Chris Kane a couple years ago that we constantly are sending out to our clients to show them how to do more complicated finds. Finding is one of the most powerful features in FileMaker, and it allows the user to pretty much do an ad hoc report of their data, and not a lot of our clients get to use those features because they're a little bit more complicated. If you're sorting through a large list of data and you're scrolling through the records to find what you're looking for, you should be doing a find instead. So instead of coming to contacts, sorting by the name, going down to J and finding Wayne Jackson finally, you should be going to Records, Find Records, or Command or Control F, and then go to the first name field and type Wayne, go to the last name field and type Jackson, and then hit Enter, or go to the Requests menu and hit Perform Find. That's the way that we really want you finding records in the system. Sorting through large sets of data is not very helpful, it's slow, and there are better ways that you can do it. And the more you get used to find mode, the more you realize just how advantageous it is. And don't be afraid of learning your keyboard shortcuts. Control or Command F to get into find mode, and then Enter to submit your criteria is going to be a lot faster than going through the menus. Find uses the beginnings of words. So if you're finding for Christopher M. Kane and you enter criteria for Chris Kane, C. Kane, or Chris C., then they'll all return the same results and possibly more. So if you're looking for, let's go to find records and let's look for Chris and Kane and hit enter. We're going to find Chris Kane and Christopher Kane, and that's because Christopher begins with Chris. So you can see how it found the beginning of that word. So if you didn't know how to spell Chris's last name, you'd relax your criteria in the last name field to just be Chris and then C in the last name field, and find him in the list of Chris C's. So let's go to a find, and let's look for Chris and C in the last name field. Let's hit enter. And you'll see we found Chris Kane, Christopher Kane, and then Chris Kane, which has a misspelled last name here. So if you know what you're looking for, don't be afraid to get very specific. If you're not sure, then just enter the beginnings of the criteria you know to expand the results of your find. The default behavior for FileMaker is to find the beginnings of words, but not the middles or ends of them. The order of the criteria in your find doesn't matter. If you entered Chris Kane or Kane Chris into the full name field, you'd end up with the same results. So let's demonstrate that. We're going to go to Records, Find Records, and in the full name field down here, we're going to look for Kane Chris. Hit enter, and we see we find Chris Kane. Also, the case doesn't matter. Lowercase Chris, title case Chris, and uppercase Chris will all return the same results. So if you're looking for Chris and male, you're going to enter a single find request with both criteria in it. So I want to find all the Chris's that are also male. So let's go to Records, Find Records, let's look for Chris, and let's put male in the gender and hit enter. So now I found all the Chris's that are male. What if I'm looking for, I want to see all the Chris's or all the males? That's going to be two requests you're going to enter using new request or controller command N when you're in find mode. We're going to add one request for each criterion. So we're going to go back into find mode, and we're going to add Chris's name into the first name field. Then we're going to go to requests and add a new request, and let's look for male in the gender field. So now we've got two requests, which tells the system look for Chris or male. And then we're going to hit enter, and we end up with all of the Chris's in the system and all of the males in the system in the same list. So what if you're looking for not someone, like not Jason? What you're going to do is enter Jason into the first name field, then use the requests, omit matching results menu item, or control or command T when you're in find mode to omit Jasons from your found set. So let's go Records, Find Records, and we're going to put Jason in the first name field here, And then we're going to go to requests, omit matching results. So as you can see, it turned red to say whatever you're finding for right now, we're going to find the opposite of that. We're going to find not Jason. So if I hit enter, we'll find everyone who isn't named Jason. So some useful menu commands. All the commands I've talked about so far and the ones I'm about to talk about can be found in the records menu, which is shown in browse mode, or the requests menu, which is shown in find mode. Modify last find is the first one we're going to talk about, and that's controller command R, and that will enter find mode and set up the find that you just did, the last find you performed pretty much. So let's do that. We're going to go to records, modify last find, command or control R, and you'll see that we have our not Jason find. So now we could edit it to say I want to find not Jason Sanders, and that would be modifying our last find, or we could run the same find again. So you can see how that could be very useful. So what if you've done a find for Chris Kane and now you want to include Wayne Jackson's records? You're going to use find records and enter Wayne Jackson into the first and last name fields, then use extend found set. So now you've performed two separate finds, but we'll have the found set from the first find. So let's take a look at that. We're going to go records, find records, and we're going to look for Chris Kane and hit enter. So we have all of our Chris Kanes. Now I want to add the Wayne Jacksons to this found set. So I'm going to go to records, find records, type in Wayne Jackson, and go to requests and go to extend found set. So that's going to add my second found set to my first found set. So if you've done a find for Chris C and now you want to remove anyone named Chris Kane, C-A-N-E, you're going to use find records and enter Kane into the last name field, then use constrained found set. Now you've performed two separate finds, but you've constrained your found set to show only the results of your first find that match your second find. So that's going to make more sense when I give you an example. So we're going to go to records, find records, and we're going to look for Chris C. And we're going to hit enter. So I see my two correctly typed Chris Kanes and my one incorrectly typed Chris Kane. So I want to omit this one from my set. I want to get rid of it. So I want to go to records, find records, and I want to type in the last name field what I want to stay, the records that I want to see in my current found set. So I'm going to hit constrained found set, and that's going to remove anything that doesn't match our second find there where we hit the constrained found set. So we only find those that have C-A-I-N in our current found set. So you can see, very useful for tailoring. I've almost got the found set I want, but I need to do a little bit of tweaking. Now, you can also use a couple more commands. Show all active records or controller command J to show all records excluding inactives, or use show all records or controller command Alt J to show all records including inactives. So in my contacts table, all of them are active. So if I show all records or show all active records, it will give me the same results. So what if you found for Chris Kane, but now you want to see everyone else besides him? You want to see only what's not showing right now. We're going to use show omitted only, which is basically going to show you the exact opposite of your current found set. So let's go records, find records, look for Chris Kane and hit enter. We find two records. What if I want to see the other 7 records? I don't want to see these 2 records. I want to see the exact opposite of what I've got now. I'm going to go to show omitted only, and now I see everything but the 2 records I was looking at. You can also use special characters such as greater than, equal to, less than or equal to find, a range of numbers, less than a number, greater than a number. We're all very familiar with how this works, and it works the same way in FileMaker. So if I go to records, find records, and I find people that have an age greater than 25, and I hit enter, I find Jason and Chris, ages of 35 and 45. So works like you'd expect. You can also use the ... operator to find values in a range. For example, you can enter C ... S into the first name field, and you'll find Chris or Crystal. So let's take a look at that. records, find record. In the first name field, C dot 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 S, hit enter. I find Chris, I find Jacob, and I find Crystal. I find Jacob because he has a C in his name and then an S in his name later on. And it doesn't matter what's between those two letters. Use equal sign to find exact matches. If you're looking for Chris but not Christopher, enter the equal sign Chris in the first name field. So let's go records, find records. In the first name field, we're going to put equal sign Chris. I'm going to hit enter. And you'll see we found our two Chris's but not our Christopher. You can also use the equal sign to find for blanks. If you enter equal sign into the first name field by itself, you'll find all the contacts that don't have a first name entered. So let's go records, find records, and let's just put an equal sign alone in the first name field, hit enter, and we see the only thing we find is a company which doesn't have a first name, so that makes sense. You can also use a question mark if you want to find invalid values. If you're looking for where someone had put text into a number field, such as the word old in an age field, you would enter question mark into the age field. So I'm going to hit Command F to get into find mode. I'm going to put a question mark in my age field. I'm going to hit enter. And I see Wayne has an age of old, which is not what we were expecting to see in that field. We want numbers. Use exclamation point to find duplicate values. If you're looking for exclamation point in the first name field, you're going to find all the people who share first names with others, such as Chris Kane and Chris Kane. So if we do a find, we enter an exclamation point in the first name field, hit enter, we find both of the Chris's in our system because they share the first name, so they're duplicate first names. You can use asterisk, the @ sign, and the pound sign to find parts of words. Asterisk will find any value in a field if entered by itself, but if entered with criterion, asterisk will find anything before or after your criterion. For example, entering C asterisk in the first name field will find Chris and Crystal. So let's take a look at this. So let's go records, find records, and put an asterisk in the age field just by itself, and we'll hit enter. And we'll find all the 3 records in our database that have any value in the age field. But now let's go find records and put an asterisk after C in the first name field. We're going to find C asterisk. Hit enter. We find anybody who has a C and then something else, anything else, in the first name field. Use the @ sign as a wildcard for any letter. For example, if you did a find for J, A, at, O, at in the first name field, you'd find Jason and Jacob. So let's see that. Going to go to find records, first name, J, A, at, O, at, hit enter. We'll find Jason and Jacob because those match the pattern of J, A, any letter, O, any letter. Use the pound sign as a wildcard for any number. For example, if you did a find for #5 in the age field, you'd find 35, 45, etc. So if we go records, find records, in the age field, #5, hit enter, we find Jason who's 35 and Chris who's 45. Put quotes around your criterion if your order does matter. For example, entering Chris Kane in the full name field would find Chris Kane, but not Kane Chris. So let's take a look at that. Let's go to records, find records, and under full name, put in quotes Kane Chris, and hit enter. We don't find anybody. That's because there is nobody named Kane Chris exactly. But if we go find records, and go to the full name field, Chris Kane, and hit enter, we find the one and only Chris Kane. So if you're actually trying to find for special characters, you can find that to be quite difficult, but what you can do is escape them by entering a / before them. For example, it's quite common to look for where there's an @ symbol in an email address, and all you really need to do that is to put a / before your @ symbol. So let's take a look at that. So go records, find records, and in our email address field, we're going to go /@, hit enter, and these are all the contacts that have @ symbols in their email address field. if you're going to actually look for a backslash, you want to use 2 backslashes to escape your backslash. So let's talk about finding dates. To find all the birth dates in February of 1989, you're going to enter 2 / *** 1989 into the birth date field. So we'll go records, find records, and in the birth date field, I'm going to go 2 / *** 1989 and hit enter. And we find me because I was born in February of 1989, and it doesn't matter what the day was because we put an asterisk there. You can use more special characters with dates. For example, entering 2/1/1989 .. 2/26/1989 into the birthday field would find all birthdays between the 1st and the 26th of February 1989. So ... will find you a range of dates. So let's go into find mode and look for 2/1/89 ... 2/26/89 and enter. We find my record again because I was born on the 13th. Entering just ... 2/26/89 or less than or equal to 2/26/89 would find birth dates before and including that date. So ... is equivalent to less than or equal to if you don't include the start date of your range. So let's take a look at that. Go to records, find records. In the birth date, let's put ... 2/26/89. Hit enter. We find Jason, who was born in the 80s, Chris was born in the 70s, and me, who was born before the 26th of February 1989. Entering the start date ... or greater than or equal to the start date will find birth dates after and including that date. So leaving off the end date in your range is equivalent to the greater than or equal to date search. So let's take a look at that. So go records, find records. Let's look for a birth date that's 2/1/89 ... So anything after 2/1/89 and we find my record again. So that pretty much wraps it up. You can see that FileMaker is very capable at handling all sorts of requests, and it's not too difficult. You've got to see just the tip of the iceberg, really. We want you all to practice and really get to know FileMaker's fine capabilities. And thank you for watching.